I read another book, I read another book, I read another book, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh god. Read another book! Woo. Dance party. Hey guys, Nikki Lee here. So, I'm kind of out of a reading slump I've been in, which is so exciting. So, I'm just really excited right now. I read a book, obviously, as you can tell. And that book I read, which I'm so excited about, is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Holy crap, this book was insane. Wow. Probably one of my all-time favourite books I've ever read. I've only read 2 by Colleen Hoover now, and that was Maybe Someday and Ugly Love. Maybe Someday, I liked, didn't love, I liked it, it was pretty good, it was really good, The Light was really good, but this was brilliant. This was fantastic. Maybe Someday is here, and then Ugly Love is just like up here. It's off the screen, it's off the charts. Brilliant. It's insane. So I'm actually going to talk about it instead of just like fangirling about it. Ugly Love is told from dual point of views and perspectives. So you've got main characters, got their names. I only read this last week and I've forgotten their names. You've got Tate and Miles. Tate is in present day, current, what's happening right now. Miles is, his perspective is told from 6 years ago. And the entire time I'm reading his perspective, I'm like, oh, you meet these characters, I'm like, they're gonna die. She's dead. She's dead. This person, they're gonna be dead. Because you're like, what has happened 6 years ago? Because these characters haven't come up in present day except when, you know, a couple of things happen. And you're like, they're gonna be dead. And it was so good. I loved it. They told the 2 perspectives. So Tate is a nursing student. She's going for her master's and she's living with her brother who is a pilot. They live in this apartment building where everybody there are pilots pretty much. The guy across the hallway in this flat is Miles, and they have an unconventional first meeting and he's really cold and hard, but they've sort of got this like attraction going on between the 2 of them. They end up just deciding that they're gonna not do the whole relationship thing but just have sex. That never turns out well for anybody in books. Don't know about real life, but in books we all know they're gonna get together. So it was fantastic, it was funny, there was some really intense sad moments, but I'd kind of already guessed what may possibly happen, so when it happened and I read ahead, I couldn't help myself, I just had to know what was going on. I think you would be bawling your eyes out. I didn't cry, did not cry, but I think if I didn't know it was coming, I would have been like a wreck, an emotional wreck. I just love how on the back it says this, I'm gonna read it. Hearts get infiltrated, promises get broken, rules get shattered, and love gets ugly. Sounds so good. Tate, the main character, she's like 22-ish, around that age, and then Miles is about 23, 24. Probably the thing I loved the most about this book was the fact that I could connect with these characters. You know, they're same age as me, the issues are relevant, you know. I also love the fact that there are a lot of sex scenes in this book. It's essentially one of the main focuses, and they actually described it and talked about it. In young adult novels, no, it's just like some kind of tacky sentence about how their bodies connected together, and just makes me cringe. Like this was raw. It was all there, no escaping it, and I thought that was brilliant. You know, it was spoken about. So I'm loving this new adult genre. I recommend this book for a contemporary novel you want to read this one. It is so good. It's fantastic. I absolutely adored it. If you haven't read it and you want to read it, you should probably go. For those of you who have read it, let's stay and talk about Ugly Love. So bye. This book. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. I loved this book so much. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Really, I haven't been this excited about a book in ages. Oh my goodness, straight from the get-go. There is drama, stuff is going down in this book. I loved how like Tate's just trying to get into her brother's apartment, and there's this guy passed out, and it's Miles, the guy who's supposed to be sort of helping her move in, and he's just like so incredibly drunk and wasted, and I'm like, I was just like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then he was talking about this girl Rachel, and I'm like, oh, she's dead. From the get-go, I was convinced that Rachel was dead. And I'm like, I don't know who she is, but she's probably dead because you don't get that drunk over someone unless they're really dead. Something bad happened, and that's why I was sort of like, oh. And then as their story evolves, I wasn't a fan of Rachel. It's that bad. I was so Tate and Miles from the get-go. I really felt bad for Miles and Rachel when you like find out that their parents have been dating, and Miles' mum's like dying of cancer, and his dad's been like dating some other woman. I felt so bad. And then it turns out the woman he's been dating is Rachel's mother, and he meets Rachel her first day at their school, and their relationship sort of unfolds, and you realise that their parents are dating, and they're sort of seeing each other on the side. Like their parents go away for holidays, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm staying with my friend, and then he's like, I've got a friend coming over, and no, they just kind of get together and have sex. She ends up getting pregnant, which I was blown away by. I was just like, the baby's gonna die. So I loved how the story unfolded, how you had like the present day, go back 6 years and you find out a little bit more and more about him over time. It was great. I loved Tate. I thought she was brilliant. I kind of felt sorry for her a couple of times though, because like this guy's just like, no, I'm not into you. He was so mean. Miles was so mean at first. I was like, oh, poor thing, he's so mean. When they go to her place, it was so funny that her brother thought he was gay and he's just like, I'm not gay, because it turns out he hasn't been with anyone for 6 years, but he's attracted to Tate, but he just doesn't want a relationship because of something that happened in a previous relationship, which we slowly find out what it is. And they end up kissing in the kitchen, and I loved this part. Her dad just sort of walks in and they don't know, and he's just like, well, you're definitely not gay then. That was so good. It was so good. I absolutely adored that part, and they were so awkward. They essentially just agree to have sex and no relationships, and he's like, you know, there's gonna be no hope for the future or anything, so don't expect anything, it's just sex. And she's like, that's fine, I don't have time for this. He hasn't, you know, been with a girl in 6 years. This is probably a part where I had some muddle issue, was when they are having sex. He's telling her she's beautiful and it's the best it's ever felt, and I'm just never done the whole friends with benefits thing, but I'm pretty sure what you were saying, mate, you don't say in that kind of arrangement. That's something a boyfriend says to his girlfriend. Of course she's gonna get hope for the future. You gave her hope from the get-go, and you told her not to have hope from the get-go, but yet you give her hope. It doesn't work like that. I just wanted to like slap him for that. Tells him, how long have you lived here? And he's like, oh, 4 years, but there's nothing in his apartment. Like, there's no curtains or anything, because he barely lives there because he's a pilot. So he takes her shopping for furniture, and he literally sees the first thing he likes and just buys it. That's something couples do together. Sorry, but it is, especially because he takes her behind the blind and starts kissing her. That is a couple thing. She's like, you're falling in love with me pretty much, because she's like, you are giving me hope, and her brother finds out about it and he's so mad, and he asks him like point blank in front of her, do you love her? And he's like, no. Do you plan to love her? And he says no. I was just like, oh, you feel so bad for her, like, you know it's coming, but at the same time, like, you're gonna get together, like, it's gonna happen, you're gonna fall in love. We're all just like, it's a waiting game at this point, but a well-written waiting game. It was so good. I have so much love for this book. Then when you find out what happens to the baby, Clayton died. Their little kid died. He's been born, and they're in the car, they're driving home from the hospital with Clayton and Rachel sitting in the back with him, and they're on a bridge, and he sees his headlight coming, and I'm like, this is where they die. And their car gets run off a bridge into this river. He saves Rachel over Clayton because he can't save both of them, and it's too hard, and he just sort of gets her out because I think she's in the way, and just sort of grabs her, and she's screaming, get Clayton, get Clayton. Kind of like Vampire Diaries with Elena and Matt when they're, yeah, it's like that. That's what I was thinking as I was reading this. Well, Stefan has to save one of them, but that's irrelevant. That's what it was like. So he gets her out, and he tries to go back in to get Clayton. He can't. This guy's just like, no, you can't go back in, the water's fully submerged, you're not gonna get him out. And I'm just like, what? And like, so because of that, Rachel hates him because the baby dies, but they both live. And I was just like, hold on a minute, you were sitting in the back with the baby, why couldn't you have tried to get him out? So she like blames this on Miles. Rachel blames Miles for the fact their baby's dead. You could have tried to do something instead of sitting there screaming, get Clayton. You could have tried to get Clayton. You're responsible too. And so like, she kind of just leaves him. 4 weeks later, writes him a note and just leaves him, which I thought was dodgy. It was dodgy. And so for 6 years, he's not over this. He's like carrying it. It's why he doesn't date. He's in relationships, and then he's slowly like falling in love with Tate. He doesn't realize it. Got no idea. He goes and sees Rachel for the first time in 6 years, and she's had a little baby girl. And I was like crying at this point, and she's moved on, and you know, and he breaks down. He's like, you've given our son a sister. And it says that because she's okay and she's dealing and she's coping with it, that he can do the same thing too. And of course at this point, Tate's moved out. Doesn't know where she lives, and you know, he kind of sees her, and it's so cute. They get together. Normally the book ends when the couple gets together, and it was like 6 months later after they've gotten together, and he proposes. It's so cute because he takes her for a flight, and because early in the book when they were talking about pilots, she's like, what's it like to see the sunset rising in the plane? And they couldn't really describe it, and so he takes her up so she can see it for herself, and it's so cute, so sweet. And then he proposes, and it's so adorable. And then epilogue, he's petrified that, you know, he's never going to feel the same way that he felt when he first held his son. And then they have a baby, and she's crying in the aisle. She's crying when, you know, baby's born. And yeah, they had a little girl. I think they named her like Sam or something. And he cries when he sees her because he had that feeling again. It was so good. It felt so good reading this book. Loved it. I love this book so much. You have to read. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's brilliant. It is fantastic. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did. I had hesitancies reading this book because of the whole friends with benefit angle. I thought it was going to be poorly done because you read fan fiction, it's atrocious. But this was so good. I felt like it was very a realistic portrayal of the whole scenario. It was brilliant. It was great. It was so good. It was so good. So you guys need to read this. Oh my god, read it. It's my favourite contemporary novel. I'm gonna say it's my favourite. So comment down below what you thought of this book, and I will see you guys next time. So bye.